So today we're going to do a quick little tour of the farms and the orchards, starting at the pear orchard and Pelican Farms. We have Bartlett's and Comeese. Bartlett's are the typical pear shape, and then the Comeese look more like an apple. Across from the pear orchard we have the Saskatoon orchard. And Saskatoons are a lot like blueberries, and they grow as a bush and they'll get 8 to 10 feet tall. In Western Canada, they have Saskatoon orchards just like people from Washington or the Midwest have apple orchards. The next stop's the sweet corn field in RainDance. The entire field along Crossroads has been seeded to Obsession 2 sweet corn. Last year, at the end of the year, we had some people bring pumpkins back and drop them in the fields, and that's a little bit of a problem because we have to spend time really eradicating the pumpkins that just naturally seeded themselves before we get the corn to grow. The tomatoes and the cucumbers are new this year, and we've got an area behind Ted's and an area in Pelican Farms. What's cool right now is you can actually hear the drip irrigation running. Because everything's irrigated through drip, the soil between the rows is dry. So it helps us from the weed management point of view that we don't have to spray herbicides to areas like this. And the tomatoes and the cucumbers aren't grown organically, but they're grown without herbicides. Hey, over here. Anybody want to volunteer to be a camera person? Okay, we're at the cherry trees now by Ted's, and we got a pretty good catch. The cherries here are Tart cherries, and they're self-pollinated, so we don't have to worry about if it's windy or if it's cold in the spring. We do have to worry about if it's rainy like last year where we lost most of the cherries. We have Montmorency and Bali Tart cherries, and they're great for pies and desserts. Cherries are one of those fruits that you have to wait for them to ripen to pick. They're not like pears where you pick and you put them in a bag and they create ethanol and they ripen. So wait till the cherries are ripe. Always is around July 4th. We have two types of plums in this orchard. Mount Royal, which is a round plum, and it's very juicy, and it will be the first to mature. We also have Stanley, and Stanley plums are elliptical, and they will be about 2 weeks after the Mount Royals. And more cherries in Cherry Park. The orchard on the east side of Covered Bridge is apples, and then we also have some plums, and then the west side are pear trees. And one of the challenges with the apples is very early in the year, the codling moth flies around at night and it lays its eggs on apples. The larvae will tunnel all the way into where the seeds are located, and then it'll live out the summer there just on the water and the nutrients that are in the apple. In the farm field west of Ted's, we have native sunflowers on the north side. In the middle, we have sunflowers that we've planted. On the south side, we have a pollinator mix of wildflowers. So you have to rotate crops, and we went a couple years with sweet corn in the main field at Barnyard Park, and this year it's going to be the main source of pumpkins for the community. Okay, now we're at Berry Park, and we got a lot of grasses at Berry Park, but we don't got a lot of berries. So if the Saskatoons work over in Pelican Farms, we will probably look at replacing some of the perennials with Saskatoon plants, so we actually have berries in Berry Park. There are definitely some challenges with trying to have orchards on the Front Range, and so this is a great example. This is a plum orchard, and plums are low pH plants, and we have very, very high pH soils. But in this location, the topsoil didn't get put back. So all the dirt got moved around the community. Normally you put a foot of topsoil back so that the plants can grow. So the developer is going to come back this fall and correct this issue by adding topsoil and replanting the trees. Now we're in the apple orchard across from Picnic Park. And these trees look absolutely great. Their leaves are big, fruit size is excellent for June. And so this will be a good crop. One interesting thing here is these are dwarf trees. So what they do is they take a branch and they snip it, and then they graft the branch to a rootstock, and the rootstock determines the size and the shape of the tree. So these trees will never get more than 8 or 10 feet tall, and they're a strong dwarf variety. Okay, so now we're in the kestrel field. Last year this was sweet corn, so we're doing pumpkins this year. And this was the very last thing we seeded, and so we have some really good germination in areas, and we have some pretty thin germination in some areas. So what we're doing is we're going to start some gourds inside. They're 90-day gourds, so we still have time to get those to maturity before everyone wants their Halloween ornaments.
We are doing some prep for gourds to fill in the spaces in the field where the pumpkins are planted. So we have our soil and we have our little pots, and we're getting everything prepped for planting.
The sweet corn in Pelican Farms this year is located in the long, skinny field right along Crossroads. So this is the last stop on the farm tour, and this is the Pelican Farms tomatoes, and over a couple rows are the cucumbers. And so what we're testing here, this was a field that has been really, really weedy the last couple years. We tried to grow pumpkins and the weeds kind of took over the pumpkins. So this is where the plastic and the drip irrigation is so helpful. And you can see the tomato plants are really healthy. There's a lot of flowers. We even got a few little tomatoes started. So what will happen over the summer is we'll keep having these grow inside the cages up, and these are the big boy varieties, so people will be able to just come out, pick some cucumbers and some tomatoes for their dinner salad. So if you saw your grandparents or your parents grow cucumbers, they probably grew them out on the ground. The problem with that is one side never gets ripe. So we use cucumber netting. And we'll just keep feeding the cucumber up, kind of like growing it like a grape. And then the fruit actually hangs and gets exposed to the sun and will become perfectly ripe on all the sides. Feel free to grab your friends or family members, take a bike or a golf cart, go ahead and do the tour and see how things are growing out in the community.